What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Panthers Advice. Today, man, we've got a lot to talk about. You got Mike and Chris Sims asking Dave about his genius plan about benching Bryce Young. They talk about Andy Dalton potentially having a chance to, man, what? And then they say the number one priority for the Panthers should be putting a weapon around Bryce Young. That should be a priority, but number one, man, I don't know about all that. Let's dive into the video, man. Let's get into this thing because there's a lot to talk about today.
You've kind of provided a new template that goes against the grain of what conventional wisdom was. You can't bench a young quarterback. He's ruined if you bench him. You're done with him if you bench him. He's never going to come back. Did you go into that move with the intention that he was going to be back last season?
All right. We got to pause it right here because why did I just cut from scene to scene? This was September 15th, okay? So Bryce Young week one was against the Saints. That was bad. Okay, that was probably the Saints' best game all year, but that was bad for the Panthers. Week two, Chargers, it looked even worse for us, right? And so Dave goes to the media on September 15th and he says this right here. Take a listen.
Did you, Dave, ever consider subbing in Andy Dalton for Bryce Young given the offensive inefficiency?
Bryce is our quarterback.
Bryce is our quarterback. Remember, this was right after the game.
I'd love to see this thing just continue to take the next steps offensively right now.
Why you always lying?
Will he start next week?
Bryce is our quarterback. We're going to just continue to shore up and fix the things we need to fundamentally from a scheme standpoint.
Always lying to me.
So that was September 15th, okay? That was September 15th where Dave basically said after the game, we're sticking with Bryce. Because you got to remember, when Dave came in, into the Panthers organization as a head coach, right, from the Bucks, the number one priority, what he basically said all offseason was, Bryce Young is our priority. We're going to basically build him up. If the season isn't the best, that's okay, right? Because we're going to focus on basically making a team better. I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said, it's going to be a rebuild year. Now take a listen right here. All right, this was the day after. This was September 16th on Monday. Take a listen.
Good afternoon. So I'm sure you've all heard by now our decision to play Andy Dalton as we go into Las Vegas to play the Raiders. Sitting Bryce down here. After yesterday, just went home, watched the film.
Hell no. They ain't got me on tape. She said he did. Fired me on the spot.
You got to be a stupid to get fired on your day off.
Now, all jokes aside, all right, all jokes aside, I get what Dave was doing on Sunday. Okay, he didn't want to bench Bryce Young right after the game, right? It was a little PR control a little bit. And, then they went to Andy Dalton the week after, or the day after, excuse me. The problem was, like I said before, all offseason they basically said it's going to be a rebuilding process. And then essentially they gave up on Bryce Young, right? Now, Bryce Young, he definitely wasn't playing great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Bryce Young guy. But he definitely wasn't playing great. But the problem was you bench him after week two, right? So now it went from it's a rebuilding process to, I got to win now. Well, what changed, right? Like it was a rebuilding process to, I got to win week three. Listen to what Dave says right here.
Had some conversations with coaches, with Dan Brandt. So had to gather a lot of information.
Notice he said Dan Morgan, and Brant Tillis. No Tepper.
Through this morning and made that decision.
I think Tepper saying in the past that he gets consulted on the big decisions. What was his role in this as you guys talked about it?
I want to keep that private. What I would like to say, though, is this is something after I watched the film, I looked at it, had a thought, started working on, talking to the guys that we make decisions with. Ultimately, this comes on me, and my number one responsibility is to help the Panthers win. And so this move, I believe, puts us in the best chance to do that this week.
So that press conference, I get, right? It went from rebuilding to Panthers are 0-2. Everybody is done with Bryce Young. It's, okay, how do we control this, right? How do we control this PR nightmare with Bryce Young at quarterback? And even with Bryce Young at quarterback, let's not get it twisted. The defense was terrible too. Even week one when everyone was healthy, the Saints did a number on us. Week two, Chargers might have had an injury. Chargers did a number on us on the ground, right? So It wasn't just Bryce, it was the whole team, but Bryce Young definitely wasn't carrying his weight. But now let's go back and hear what Dave says about the plan to bench Bryce Young.
I did not know how he was going to respond to that.
First of all, I just want to say respect to Dave, right? He's not trying to take credit because as you saw in the press conference, that wasn't the plan.
What I knew was I needed to make the best decision for the Panthers at the time. And that's truly like, I want to win this game. And I felt like Andy gave us a chance to win that game.
I wanted to pause it right here because I feel like Dave, once again, he mentions he wanted to win in week 3. I wish he would have played Andy and Bryce in the preseason more and let them kind of duke it out. And if Andy was the better quarterback, then I think after week 1, you could have put him in and not basically had to answer, why are you benching a rookie quarterback, this, and a third? Because if Andy would have showed out, that would have told the public, hey, Bryce Young can learn from Andy Dalton. That's just my take. Let's get back to the video.
In Vegas. And then we just went week to week like that, just thinking about it. And I really got to tell you, I don't know if this model works, but I know that it worked for Bryce. I know Bryce took the challenge. Bryce grew. He took every day as an opportunity. He never stopped leading through that whole time. He's working his teammates in the locker room. He's working the sideline during the games. He's there as support for Andy while he was playing. He literally did not bow out.
What was it like, tangibly on the field that you saw the difference in, right? I mean, we all did, where it looked like he was a little nervous and uncomfortable. Then you benched him, and then you brought him back in, and it was like, damn, he's Johnny Smooth now. Look.
Before Dave answers, to me, the difference was Bryce has nothing to lose at this point. He's been benched, okay. Talks about being traded, okay. They let go of Deontay Johnson. The team at this point is kind of destined to fall. So whatever happens, happens. So there's no more pressure, right? And I think that's what happened at the beginning of year 2. There was a lot of pressure for Bryce Young to live up to these expectations and basically transforming a team that wasn't great to begin with. No matter how you look at this team from secondary to defensive line, it wasn't great. Offensive line, I think, was probably our best kind of group. But other than that, I mean, Bryce Young came back and was like, okay, this team just isn't great right now. Let me just do what I can, be one of 11. That's exactly what he did to me. Let's see what Dave says.
Yeah,
What was it to you?
It wasn't any one specific thing. I just saw when we went out there and played Denver, we lost that game, but I felt his confidence. I felt his presence. I felt what I saw in the evaluation process of this leader, this guy that can go out there with all these other skills and talent. I just saw that come alive, and the energy was different as we just kind of continued to build the offense around his skill set with all the different things that we were doing. I just saw him taking command, taking control of it, and just did that weekly.
Andy Dalton has signed a 2-year deal to stay with the Panthers, and he's had a kind of an underrated career. What's the hierarchy? And if he's the backup, is it the traditional, you're there to back up and only back up, or is there, a blurred line as to whether or not he could earn playing time like he did last year?
Yeah, he came back with the full understanding. He is here as a resource for Bryce Young. Bryce is our...
That right there is huge. Because now Bryce doesn't have Andy Dalton on his back. I'm glad Dave summed it up. It took Dave a while to say Bryce Young is our starting quarterback. And the fact that Dave is saying Andy Dalton is backing up Bryce Young, that tells me Dave is on board with Bryce. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know for sure if Dave was. But the fact that he said this right here lets me know that Dave is on board, man. Let's keep it going.
Our guy, he's the backup. If something happened to Bryce, we have Andy that we know can still play at a pretty good high level there. He's got all the arm talent and all those things. And then also just from a mental standpoint, he's year 2 in our system, and he's such a great resource for Bryce. Their relationship is probably the biggest reason why we made this decision. Bryce's support of Andy when he went in, Andy's support of Bryce as we decided, hey, we're staying with Bryce right here.
Fair to say, putting...
This right here might be, I'm not going to say the wildest comment that Chris Sims is about to say, but it's up there. Let's take a listen.
Skill guys and skill talent around Bryce Young, priority number 1 for the team.
I couldn't even finish it. And let me tell you why I think it's wild. It's not like the Panthers don't already have weapons around Bryce Young. And when I say that, I'm not saying they've got amazing weapons, right? But Bryce Young did have 5 touchdowns week 18. Week 18, he had 5 touchdowns. Look at the defense, though. Worst rushing defense in the league, right? Secondary is decimated. Dave also brought up the Panthers only have 1 safety on the roster. So he told Chris the Panthers have 1 safety on the roster. Then he says putting weapons around Bryce Young is priority number 1. Maybe I'm reaching by being flabbergasted with his statement. But the Panthers' defense was so bad last year. Edge, linebackers, secondary. And part of it had to do with injuries, right? Let's call it what it is. Part of it had to do with injuries too. But there are weapons around Bryce Young, right? But that tells me people don't actually watch the Panthers. Leggett, hate him or like him, his biggest drops, he had the couple drops that were deep passes in the Eagles game, but a lot of them were just hitch passes, right? So it's just basically a 5-yard hitch turnaround, and I think it's just a mental game. Other than that, he's good. You got Leggett, you got Thielen, you got Chuba Hubbard, you got Jatavion Sanders. Bryce Young has weapons. The defense, we're struggling a little bit. So that right there is pretty much going to wrap it up. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. We're going to talk about some of the potential draft prospects next week because the combine just got over. I'll catch you guys then. Take it easy. Panthers Devices out. I'll catch you on the next one.